The space race began during the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. On October 4th, 1957, the Soviet Union successfully launched the world's first satellite, the Sputnik 1. The Sputnik 1 marked the beginning of the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. Russia took the lead in the space race when they launched this 22-inch metal sphere. The Sputnik 1 was designed to collect data on the upper layers of the Earth's atmosphere. It was made up of 3 different parts. The first was a booster rocket that launched it enough to get through the atmosphere. The second part took over at 5,000 miles an hour and brought it to 500 miles from the surface of Earth. The final part of the Sputnik 1 was the satellite itself. This artificial moon was landed back on the Earth on December 18, 1957.
You are hearing the actual signals transmitted by the Earth-circling satellite, one of the great scientific feats of the age.
This was bad news for America. If Russia could send satellites into space, then maybe they could launch nuclear missiles as well.
The United States was prepared for the Soviet Union dropping bombs on us from a satellite.
We should find out what they're doing that we're not doing.
The race run by rockets, where is the finish line?
On November 3rd, 1957, less than a month later, the Soviet Union launched the Sputnik 2. It carried the first passenger into space, Laika the space dog. This proved that a living thing could survive spaceflight. On December 6, 1957, the U.S. had a huge setback. Their first launch of the Vanguard lifted 6 inches off the pad and fell back down with a vibrant explosion. On January 31, 1958, the U.S. was still scrambling to catch up to the Soviet Union in the space race. They launched the Explorer 1, which discovered the Van Allen radiation belt. A few months later, on July 29, 1958, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, also known as NASA, was formed. On April 12, 1961, the Soviets pulled even further ahead when cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin orbited Earth in the spaceship Vostok 1 to become the first human space traveler in orbit around the Earth. On May 5, 1961, U.S. astronaut Alan B. Shepard reached suborbital altitude and parachuted back to Earth. He became the first U.S. astronaut in space. On February 20, 1962, almost a year later, John H. Glenn successfully orbited the Earth 3 times aboard the Friendship 7 spacecraft. He became the first U.S. astronaut to orbit the Earth. Meanwhile, Russia had many other firsts, such as the first dual-man flight, the first 3-man flight, the first woman in space, and the first spacewalk. On May 25, 1961, President John F. Kennedy challenged the Soviet Union to a moon race.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish. We propose to accelerate the development of the appropriate lunar spacecraft.
On July 13, 1969, the Soviet Union launched an unmanned Soviet craft, Luna 15, in hope to land on the lunar surface, collect rock samples, and return to Earth. On July 21st, the Luna 15 crash-landed on the moon. On July 20th, 1969, the U.S. Apollo 11 reached the lunar surface.
12, 11, 10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds forward, drift.
Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon. On this July 20th, 1969.
That's one small step for man, One giant leap for mankind.
This is one of the most famous quotes in history, and it represents the legacy of walking on the moon. Although the Soviet Union was in the lead for most of the space race, in the end, the United States pulled through and won. With the conclusion of the space race, there was gradual improvement of U.S.-Soviet relations. In 1975, the joint Apollo-Soyuz mission sent 3 U.S. astronauts into space aboard an Apollo spacecraft that docked in orbit with a Soviet-made vehicle. It took a lot of leadership to have successful missions, and the legacy still lives on today.